Okay. All right. I'm gonna share screen. Okay. So where we left off last week, we were left with the chemical properties, specifically the reactivity, the standard electrode potentials, and I also wanted to discuss a tiny bit about the magnetic moments, like what is magnetic moments and why is it different in the case of like d orbitals, f orbitals, like a little bit of that. So we'll finish off the chapter today. So coming to so I'll first discuss the standard electrode potential because that relates with the chemical reactivity as well. So we had done, we had like discussed about the electrode potentials back when we were doing like oxidation and reduction, like redox reactions chapter May. So do any of you guys remember what that was all about? Like what does knowing the standard electrode potentials tell you, or what is the significance, like what do you guys understand through standard electrode potentials?
It depends on the reactivity, like the ability of that particular element or ion to displace other things which are lower in the reactivity series as compared to that element.
Awesome, very good. So that's exactly what it is. Usually standard electrode potentials are considered for this one. So usually you'll have standard electrode potentials, like if you have E naught for, let's say, M2 plus to M. So sorry, not 2, like M2 plus slash M. So this basically represents the ability of M to convert into M2 plus. And usually the more, so what, the more negative or the more positive? If I want to like, if the E naught value is more negative, what does that represent? Like, is it easier for like M to convert into M2 plus, or is it more difficult? What does this signify? So a more negative E naught value signifies that it is easier for M to ionize, or is it more difficult for M to ionize? Which one is it?
I think it is easier for the M to ionize.
Okay. Pakka?
I don't exactly remember.
All right.
I,
Jasmine has also said it would be easier. Yeah. Who else? Somebody was speaking. Yeah.
even I think it's easier.
Easier. Yes. You guys are absolutely right. So the more negative the an E naught value is, the easier it is for basically M to convert into M2 plus. So in this case, would you say M is oxidizing or reducing? Like, is that showing an oxidizing character or a reducing character?
M itself is getting oxidized, so it's a reducing character.
So yes. So this in turn decides, whether M is going to be an oxidizing or reducing nature. So the easier it is for this particular conversion, the more of a reducing character it shows. Like it can easily reduce other compounds or ions because it's giving away electrons easily. Okay. So if you look at that, now coming to the trends of D block elements, like specifically, let's look at the 3D series. So what would you expect the trend to be like in the 3D series? Is it going to be increasing? Is it going to be decreasing? What would you predict? So what would you predict about the E naught character for 3D series? Come on.
It'll I think it will increase because the metallic character increases as we go left to right.
Left to right, metallic character is increasing.
Sorry, non-metallic character increases. Wait.
Okay, so
So yeah,
you're
I think it should
predicting
decrease.
regular this thing. Okay, or should it decrease? Okay. Um, if you want to predict the trend of E naught character, you'll have to look at how easily, how willingly or unwillingly this transition or this conversion is going to happen. Okay, so let's look at our 3D elements. You've got scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, and zinc. Yeah. So what, like how easily, like if you compare, like okay, now you've got all these elements here, what decides whether an atom is willing to form like a +2 ion or a +1 ion or a +3 ion? Like what is the main property that decides this behavior? Like what decides whether something is going to form a cation or anion?
Its electronic configuration.
Mama's valency.
Valency or electronic configuration. Yes, number of valence electrons, because it will want to go towards having fully filled valence electrons, or no, the valence orbital, or like a half filled this thing. So it would want to go towards that stability, right, decided by the electronic configuration. Is there a regular trend here in the electronic configuration? So if you're looking at M converting to M2 plus, it means that it's losing the outermost two s electrons. Okay. So once it loses the s electrons, let's see what the the d orbital configurations are like. So scandium is going to form D1, titanium will form D2, vanadium has D3, chromium will have D4, manganese D5. So this is D6, D7, D8, D9, and this has a fully filled thing. So in this, when the configurations are looking like this, will you be able to predict a uniform increase or decrease in the trends? So in this case, we've got manganese with D5, which is again half filled, and this shows some extra stability, right? And apart from this, another main thing that you need to consider is that a lot of, when you're calculating the standard electrode potentials, the like this particular setup, like the calculated value is taken in aqueous solutions. So when the ion is being formed, another important factor you need to consider is the hydration enthalpy, the enthalpy of hydration as well. So considering both the factors, you know what is observed is that, like in the 3D series, there is no general trend as such for the E naught values, for the standard electrode potentials. So the reason why it is varying up and down, like why there is no general trend, is because of one reason is that you have the half filled and fully filled subshells. So because manganese has a half-filled subshell, zinc has a fully filled subshell, that contributes to extra stability, which in turn, if it is stable, if it wants to form that, it's gonna affect the E naught value. Like you need to spend less amount of energy for that conversion to take place. And another reason is that the enthalpy of hydration, like nickel specifically, has one of the highest hydration enthalpies in the whole series, which if you consider the overall value of ionization energy plus the enthalpy of hydration, that decreases the E naught value as compared to cobalt, iron, copper, and all of that. Same thing is true of copper as well. So copper has like really low enthalpy of hydration, because of which like the copper ion in aqueous solution is not stabilized. So which is why copper specially forms a positive E naught value, which is why we say, oh, copper does not really react with acids. So if copper reacts with acids, it is not because of its standard electrode potential, it's not because of its own reactivity. It is more because if the acid also has an oxidizing nature to it, like nitric acid or really hot concentrated sulfuric acid. Okay, so copper is like an exception. It has a positive standard electrode potential, so it cannot displace hydrogen, and so it reacts only with acids that have an oxidizing nature to it. And the rest of the metals all have negative electrode potential, which is why they are able to displace hydrogen from acids, even from water. Like wherever you have a H plus ion, that's taken as the reference point, right? So the standard electrode potential of hydrogen is always considered as 0. So if you have a negative electrode potential for a particular metal, so that's less than hydrogen, and so it can displace hydrogen. So it converts H plus to H. And if it has a positive electrode potential, it's got like more E naught as compared to hydrogen, which is why it is not, it is incapable of displacing hydrogen from H plus. So H plus, you get it either from water or from acids or any other compound. Okay. So this is like the behavior for E naught values. E naught for M2 plus M. Similarly, you will also have E naught value, Similarly, you will also have E naught values for M3 plus to M2 plus. Now, what can you say about this particular E naught value? Again, the trend for M3 plus to 2 plus standard electrode potential is also, there's like a varying trend. Again, this is because of its electronic configuration. So special points, if you consider Scandinavium, SC. Considering its electronic configuration, what would you predict the standard electrode potential for Scandinavium would be? Is it going to be like really low or really high?
Can you repeat that? My connection is a bit weak today.
So for Scandinavium, what would you predict the E naught for the conversion of SC2 plus to SC3 plus P? Is it going to be especially low or is it going to be especially high?
1 second, ma'am.
See, all you have to do is observe the electronic configuration. Like anybody else also can try.
Yes, ma'am, that's what I'm doing. I'm just looking at the electronic configuration.
Yeah. So I'm looking at all the silent people. Like I haven't heard from
Ma'am, is it
yeah.
okay, 2 plus to 3 plus, right? I think it will be low because it's achieving argon configuration after that.
Exactly. This is going to be especially low. Like not abnormally, but yeah, it's going to be lower than what you would like calculate or expect. Like it's going to be lower than usual. Because yeah, it is so scandium is argon, which ends with 3p6, and then you've got 4s2 and then 3d1, right? So 4s2, like 2 plus may 4s2 are gone, and then once it loses 3d1 electron also to get a 3 plus configuration, it is achieving argon ka configuration, which is like extremely especially extra stable, right? So इसलिए is going to be especially low. Similarly, zinc also shows, zinc, what do you expect? So conversion of zinc 2 plus to Zn3 plus, is it going to be extremely low or especially high?
It will be extremely high
Yes.
Yes.
because like it has the 3D10 configuration in the +2 state, so like it's not gonna give away electrons.
So yes, Jasleen?
No, nothing, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, Ananya also says it's going to be very high. Exactly, absolutely. Because yeah, so 3d10 fully filled say electron nikalna is going to be very difficult. So this is also going to be especially high. Okay. Now these are like really small questions, like you may get like 1 markers subparts asking you to comment on why the standard electrode potential of zinc 3 plus / 2 plus is low or high. In that case you need to know the reason that like zinc 2 plus ka configuration is d10. To convert it to Zn3 plus, you need to remove an electron from a fully filled orbital, which is going to disturb its stability, and so it is high. Yeah. Okay. Similarly, what can you say about manganese? So if you were to convert Mn2 plus to Mn3 plus, is it going to be high or low? Manganese and iron के लिए भी Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus.
Ma'am, for Mn2 plus to Mn3 plus is gonna be high, but for Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus it's gonna be low.
Very nice. Awesome. Ananya and Jasleen have also answered. Ananya, you mentioned high extra stability due to half-filled orbital. Are you talking about Mn there or Fe there? Mn, yes, absolutely. So manganese is going to be high because Mn2 plus already has a D5 configuration. So half-filled se remove karna is going to be difficult. And similarly, iron is going to be low because iron, so Fe2 plus may, it's got a D6 configuration, which is going to be converted into D5 in the case of Fe3 plus, which is why for Fe is going to prefer going to 3 plus oxidation state, which is why Fe is going to be low, which kind of makes sense, right? Like if you've come across, a lot of times in the previous classes when it comes to things like copper, iron, variable valencies, jahan pe bhi hai, we always like I've mentioned that, oh, for this particular compound, +3 is preferable. So if it's not mentioned, if you just like, if they just say iron oxide, just like assume it to be +3 unless it is specified. The reason is that Fe prefers to be in Fe3 plus, like this is more stable compared to Fe2 plus, which is why it goes towards this thing. So similarly, in the case of copper, both Cu2 plus and Cu plus exist, but in a lot of cases, like no, copper is again a different case because Cu plus has a completely filled d orbital, but Cu2 plus has a higher hydration enthalpy, which kind of compensates for the total of the ionization energies, which is why a lot of copper compounds exist in Cu2 plus, like CuSO4, CuCl2, all of like CuO, all of this. Okay. All right. So this is basically the trends in the standard electrode potential, and this is what is also going to decide your chemical reactivity also. So if you have Fe2 plus, it is going to, it wants to be oxidized to Fe3 plus, which is why it's going to show more of a reducing nature. Yeah. So similarly, like, if you have manganese, like if you have Mn +7, like in the case of potassium permanganate, right? So +7, like rather than push or give away its electrons, it would much rather have a half-filled stable orbital and like keep the electrons. Again, when you go to extremely high oxidation states, you're going to have it's not an ionic compound, like you're not going to remove 7 electrons from manganese. The bond is going to take more of a covalent nature. Now oxidation state +7 implies that, like the electron cloud is being pulled away from manganese, but it would much rather have 5 of the electrons and then like give away 2 electrons, like have the ionic nature as compared to like a part covalent nature, which is why manganese in or chromium in extremely high oxidation states, they themselves want to be reduced, which is why they're powerful oxidizing agents. That is why your potassium dichromate and potassium permanganate have Cr in extremely high oxidation states, Cr and Mn. They want to be reduced, which is why they have they act as oxidizing agents. Okay. So yeah, so a combination like the electrode potential basically decides what the chemical nature of that particular element or ionic species is going to be like, which is why we didn't study this for like S or P block elements, but for D block elements, this becomes very important. So another advantage or another significance for specifically looking at E0 values is that E0 values, like all of these conversions, are happening in aqueous nature. And a lot of reactions that you do with D block also are going to be in aqueous forms, which is why like even when you have slight, sort of anomalies because of the enthalpy of hydration, the standard electrode potential reflects their basic reactivity in aqueous solution, which is why like this is like kind of considered to predict what their this thing is going to be, their chemical this thing. Okay. Next, coming to like how D block elements are existing in like high oxidation states. I just mentioned that they're going to have more of a covalent nature, right? Like when do they form high oxidation, like compounds with high oxidation states, with what other elements do they form, and how are they getting stabilized? I'll just discuss all of that. Okay. Any doubts so far in terms of the standard electrode potential?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. All right. So when you're talking about some of the highest oxidation states. So if you want extremely high oxidation states of the element, it means that the electron cloud needs to be pulled away from the element. Now, which elements are powerful enough? Like, what property of elements will you have to consider to predict this property of, like pulling away the electron cloud?
No, I didn't get you.
So with what elements would you expect, these metals to show their highest oxidation states?
I think with highly electronegative elements, halogens maybe.
Very nice. Yes. So you need high electronegative elements. Like extremely high electronegative elements are capable of stabilizing the high oxidation states. And the high electronegative elements, Aryan, you had mentioned halides, but not all halides are equally, yeah, in the periodic table, they have some of the highest electronegative elements, but mainly this is shown by oxygen and fluorine. So highest oxidation states is shown mainly when the metals, the D block, the 3D series forms compounds with oxygen and fluorine. Okay. So some of the examples of these kind of compounds are you have titanium tetrafluoride, TiX4. You've got vanadium pentafluoride, VF5, and chromium hexafluoride, CrF6. Okay. So again, like extremely high, you will look at these are the examples of halides that are formed. In the case of titanium, it is stabilized by all of the halogens like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. But when it comes to the +5 oxidation state of vanadium and +6 oxidation state of chromium, only fluorine is able to form these compounds. And other high oxidation states is shown by oxygen. So you've got Mn2O7, in which manganese shows +7 oxidation state. You've got CrO3, again +6 of chromium. And you have like a bunch of others. V2O5 is also another +5 oxidation state. Okay. And of course, you've got like MnO2, TiO2, all of these oxides are +4 oxidation state. Okay, so first we'll be looking at the halides. So the reason why fluorine can stabilize the high oxidation state is because of two reasons. One is that fluorine, like when these metals form compounds with fluorine, so those particular compounds have a very high lattice energy. So finally, when they form the crystal lattice, a lot of energy is released, and that leads to the stability, like in the case of NaCl, for example. And another reason why fluorine is able to stabilize is the high, like it has a relatively higher bond enthalpy. So the high lattice energy factor is displayed in cobalt trifluoride, and the bond enthalpy factor is displayed in VF5 and CrF6. Okay. So these, just remember these particular compounds because like you may get questions that are phrased like what is the reason, or how is fluorine able to stabilize VF5 despite vanadium showing a high oxidation state? then in that case, the answer to that is going to be that's because of the high bond enthalpy, like the higher bond enthalpy shown by fluorine as compared to like other halides. Okay. Another important like exception or fun fact, not fun, but yeah, another fact is that when it comes to vanadium, it can show +5 oxidation state only with fluorine and not with other halides. So the reason is that, like, even if you were to prepare, something like VCl5, this is going to get hydrolyzed to form. It's going to get hydrolyzed to form what do you call that? Oxohalides. So VCl5 in the presence of water is going to give you VOCl3. So here also, yeah, the oxidation state is +5. It is, but it is not stabilized by the halide alone. So oxygen is gonna get into the mixture. Yeah. So only with fluorine it is able to stabilize V+5. Similarly with chromium also. So only CrF6 is capable of existing, because all the other chromium halides, or with +6, +5, like extremely high oxidation state, are going to get hydrolyzed to form like oxohalides. They form their oxocations. Okay. So you can say hydrolyzed by water to form their oxocations. Okay. All right. You
Ma'am,
guys? Yep.
but if we are preparing VCl5, why would we? Acha, okay, from the HCl component. Got it.
Mm.
I was gonna ask, where do we get the water from?
Again, like it may exist if you have like really perfect conditions, but even your atmosphere is going to have some amount of water vapor, no? If you do it in aqueous solution, water is available right there. Even otherwise, like there is water vapor in the atmosphere. So yeah, it's hydrolyzed. Okay. Have you guys noted this down? Can I clear this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Now, on the flip side, now chlorine stabilizes the high oxidation state, but it is unstable in the lower oxidation states. So if you have any of the lower oxidation, like let's continue with vanadium. So if you have any VX2 compound, then this can be formed only, like X will stand only for chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So VX2 is just not at all stable. Fluorine is not stable in the lower oxidation states. So F is not stable in lower oxidation states. Yeah. Now, one exception to this is copper. Okay. So copper may CuF2 is known and it exists and it is relatively stable. In fact, copper forms CuX2 in this case. So copper can form CuX2, where X can be either F, Cl, or Br. Let me write this properly. But CuI2 is again not stable. Okay. So once you, like, if at all there is CuI2 formed, again, like lower oxidation state +2 oxidation state means it has a higher ionic character. So what happens is the copper ions, in fact, they oxidize the iodine ions. So you have I minus, it gives Cu2I2 plus release iodine gas. Yeah, and just balancing this, you've got 4 iodine and 2 copper. Yeah, And again, I mentioned earlier, so copper would prefer to be in +1 oxidation state. Sorry, yeah, copper would prefer to be in +2 oxidation state, even though Cu plus has like a fully filled d orbital, because of the enthalpy of hydration. So the enthalpy of hydration for Cu plus is higher, sorry, Cu2 plus is higher than the enthalpy of hydration for Cu plus, which is why, you know, like Cu, like the compounds of copper tend towards more of Cu2 plus rather than Cu plus. So whenever you've got Cu plus compound, or you know, like if you have any Cu plus compound, like let's say CuCl, it undergoes disproportionation reaction. Do you guys remember what is disproportionation? What are
I think it's that event, right, where the same element undergoes oxidation and reduction in a chemical reaction.
correct? So Cu plus is unstable. This is unstable, and it undergoes disproportionation reaction. So what happens is Cu plus undergoes oxidation as well, gets converted to Cu2 plus, and reduction as well gives rise to Cu metal. Okay. The reason is that I'll just write it down. The reason is that the enthalpy of hydration of Cu plus, sorry, Cu2 plus is greater or more negative than Cu plus. So this is the reason, like once it is an aqueous solution, it is it is stabilized by the water molecules surrounding it. So Cu2 plus is more stable in aqueous solution than Cu plus. So even if you do have a Cu plus compound like CuCl or you know CuF or something, it's going to undergo disproportionation reaction to form Cu2 plus, which is stabilized in this thing in aqueous solution. Okay, cool. Noted. So I'm just gonna quickly revise again. So higher oxidation states are stabilized by highly electronegative elements, oxygen and fluorine, which is why a lot of compounds in higher oxidation state you are going to observe only with oxygen and fluorine, and halides to some extent. Within halides also, the highest oxidation states are stabilized by fluorine. So which is why you have VF5 existing, CRF6 existing, but you don't have like, you know, CrCl6 or other things. But in like stark opposite to that, now fluorine cannot stabilize the lower oxidation states. And yeah, so you have halides in other lower oxidation states. So for example, if you have VX2, in this case, vanadium existing in +2 oxidation state, which is one of the lower oxidation state, fluorine is not stable. So VX2 can be formed only with chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So one single exception to this is copper. So in copper, if you consider CuX2 compounds, fluorine, chlorine, and bromine exist. So CuF2, CuCl2, CuBr2 exist, but iodide is not stable. Now that is like the reason for that is again like iodine has extremely large size. There are like a lot of other factors to it. So whenever you even try to prepare CuI2, it is not stable. It is like the copper ion is going to get reduced to Cu plus, and it's going to oxidize iodide to iodine gas. So this is the reaction that's going to take place whenever, like if you have Cu2 plus and I minus ions in a solution, it's not going to form CuI2. Instead, this is what is going to happen. You get Cu2I2 and iodine gas is going to be released. And considering the oxidation states of copper, it can exist in Cu plus and Cu2 plus, which makes sense, right? Like if it forms Cu plus, then D10 is a fully filled orbital. But in reality, like whenever you're doing these reactions in solutions, the hydration enthalpy of Cu2 plus is more negative than Cu plus. So Cu2 plus is more stabilized in solution than Cu plus. And so whenever you have Cu plus ions, they undergo disproportionation reaction to give Cu2 plus and Cu metal. Okay. So this is like the story of D block elements when they form halides in their higher oxidation states. Now considering the other set of compounds they form with higher oxidation states when it comes to the different oxides. So in a particular higher oxidation state of any particular metal, oxygen stabilizes the higher oxidation state more than fluorine. Okay. So that is why the maximum oxidation state that fluorine can affect is +6 in chromium, but with oxygen, like even Mn2O7 can exist, where Mn is showing an oxidation state of +7. The main reason is that oxygen is capable of forming. So again, why is oxygen better? Oxygen is capable of forming multiple bonds with the metal atom. Here. So if we look at Mn2O7 itself, the structure of Mn2O7 is you have Mn forming a bond with oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. Then you have an oxygen bridge here. And then again, you've got oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. So yeah, is asking multiple bonds. So multiple bonds as in like it can form double bonds. Yeah. So with the same manganese atom, fluorine can form only one bond, right? So like with manganese, it can form a maximum of 4 or 5 bonds, which basically affects the stereochemistry. Like if you were to consider fluorine bonding with manganese, again, higher oxidation state matlab covalent nature increases. So if fluorine were to form a bond with all of the with all of the valence electrons of manganese, it's going to get like really bulky. So fluorine may be a small atom, but it is still a lot of fluorine atoms. But in the case of oxygen, because it is forming multiple bonds, like same oxygen atom is forming 2 bonds with manganese, it can happily exist in a tetrahedral structure, giving a lot of space to other oxygen atoms, and that contributes to its higher stability as compared to what fluorine is capable of doing. Okay. So yeah, the reason why oxygen is capable of stabilizing the higher oxidation state more than fluorine is that oxygen can form multiple bonds. Now because of this, you will require lesser number of oxygen atoms, and like you won't have any steric hindrance over there. Stereochemistry is like happy, lots of space to all of these atoms. Okay. Another fun fact is the highest oxidation state that what do you call, so the highest oxidation state with oxygen coincides with the group number. And this is like up to manganese. So for example, if you look at, let's say, vanadium. So vanadium is in the 5th group, like first 2 groups are S block, and then 3rd group is scandium, 4th is titanium, 5th is vanadium. So the highest oxidation state that it can show with oxygen is +5. Yeah, simple. So with up to manganese, the highest oxidation state that any this thing can show is like equal to the group number. After manganese, like from iron onwards, the oxidation state decreases. Okay. Again, the reason is that you'll have like paired up electrons in iron. Like if you have D6, iron ka electronic configuration is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So with iron, now this d orbital is completely filled. You like it can't really form a bond. Again, it'll have to like include s and p orbitals and form the hybridization and all of that. Like that's not this thing. So iron shows a maximum oxidation state of +3. +4 also are known to exist, but that's more of, like in the case of, so that exists in the form of ferrate ions. Okay. So ferrate ions are basically, just like sulfate, nitrate, phosphates, ferrate ions are basically FeO4 2-. Sorry, 2+ hoga because 2 electrons are missing here. Yeah. Okay. But these are like, they are unstable and then they decompose to Fe2O3, giving out oxygen. So theoretically, yeah, so ferrate ions are known to exist, but they're like highly unstable. Neutral compounds, the way Mn2O7 exists, highest oxidation state that iron shows with oxygen is Fe2O3. So that's +3 oxidation state. Okay. Another fun fact, like in the 3D series, manganese has highest oxidation state of +7, but in the whole periodic table, osmium is the one that shows the highest oxidation state of +8. Okay. Apart from this, D block elements are also capable of showing or forming oxocations. So oxocations are similar to your oxoanions, like in the case of sulfur, nitrogen, carbon, you have sulfate, sulfite, carbonate, phosphate, phosphite, nitrate, nitrite, right? So those are all oxoanions because they are forming anions with oxygen. In the case of D block elements, you've got oxocations. So basically, V5+ is stabilized by oxygen. So this forms the oxocation VO2+. And again, you have V in 4+. As a oxocation, this exists as VO2+. And then you've got like titanium 4+. This exists as oxocation as TiO2+. Okay, these are like some of the oxocations formed by the D block elements. ठीक है. Then again, now these are oxocations. Now let's look at the oxides and oxoanions of transition metals. Okay. So, or transition elements do form oxides as well when they are burnt in air. Like they can form oxides, like even if they are not burnt in air, you can see iron and all rusting happens, they do form oxides. What can you say about the nature of oxides of 3D or D block elements? So what can you say about the oxides of D block elements? What is the nature of oxides?
Basic.
Basic, all right. You would expect that because they are mainly metals, right? But again, the nature of oxide depends on the oxidation state. Okay, I'll just write it down here. So formation of oxides is pretty easy. You heat the metal with oxygen at a very high temperature. It forms the metal oxide. So all form metal oxide of the form MO except Scandinavium. So Scandinavium only shows +3 oxidation state. So this forms Sc2O3. Okay. Now nature of the oxide varies from basic to acidic. And this depends on the oxidation state. Okay. So let's divide the oxides into 3 categories. So we have low oxidation state oxides, medium oxidation, like mid oxidation state, and high oxidation state. Now, what can you say about the low oxidation state? Is it going to be basic or acidic? So low oxidation state matlab when the metal exhibits like a +1 or a +2 oxidation state. And to some extent, like very rarely, maybe +3 also. So would it be basic or acidic, low oxidation state? Okay, the way you can figure this out is apply the rules you've learned for S and P block. Like the more ionic character the oxide has, like in the case of metal oxides like calcium oxide, magnesium oxide, the more basic nature they've shown, and the more acidic character the oxide has, like carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide, those were showing more of an acidic character. So in this case, how would you figure out which is showing more of an ionic character versus covalent character?
What?
How would you decide which oxide is showing an ionic character versus covalent character? Like you have low oxidation state oxides, the medium oxidation state oxides, and high oxidation state oxides. Okay, Ria has already given an answer, which is right. Okay, awesome. Rest of you also try this out. Come on guys, like last year discuss किया था ना, अभी पहले भी ये इसका discussion हुआ. Which one would have more of a covalent character? Like how does covalent character? Yeah, Jasleen is saying Fahan's rules. Ria has mentioned. Yes. How is covalent character related to oxidation state? Good, good. Now you guys are going in the right direction. It is definitely related to Farn's rules.
High oxidation state would mean more covalent character.
Absolutely. Yes, Jasmine has also mentioned. Yes, higher OS, higher polarizing power, like it has a greater covalent nature. And lower oxidation state, in turn, is going to have more of an ionic nature. तो इसके basis पे, yeah, इसके basis पे, can you predict the basic and ionic nature, basic and acidic nature of the oxides? So
The high oxidation states ones would be basic, but the low oxidation states ones would be ionic. Sorry, acidic.
And why?
Because like usually metal ions form ionic compounds, and
Yeah.
metal compounds are basic, so ionic compounds should be basic.
So either low oxidation state will be basic or acidic. Your logic is absolutely right. So based on that, either low oxidation state, these oxides will show a basic character or acidic character.
What did I say earlier? Did I say acidic for low oxidation state?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Didn't mean to say that.
थोड़ा focus. ठीक है. So low oxidation state oxides show a basic character. So your FeO, TiO, all the oxides of the form MO are going to show basic nature, and the medium oxidation state is going to show amphoteric nature. So depending on what their company is, whether it's an acid or a base, they can swing either way. So they show basic character as well as acidic character. Okay. Example of medium oxidation state is you have V2O4. So up to like +3, like even Fe2O3, I would say is like ionic basic in nature. Once it goes to +4, it is like mid OS. And then extremely high oxidation state. So whenever you've got like Mn2O7, which has like a +7 oxidation state, is completely acidic. So it is like Mn2O7, in fact, is a covalent compound. So even V2O5, like as the oxidation state goes higher, they start showing properties like covalent compounds. So that also involves like their melting points and all of that. So V2O5, Mn2O7, like they have like really low melting points. Mn2O7 is a green, oily, acidic liquid. Okay. And to show the basic acidic amphoteric property, so we'll look at reactions of vanadium or oxides of vanadium basically. So you've got V2O3 shows an outright basic. So in this case, its oxidation state is +3, and this is mainly basic. You've got V2O4, it's got +4. This is amphoteric. And V2O5 with a +5 oxidation state is no. So this is not. So this is less basic, and up to +5, like V2O5 goes up to amphoteric nature. Okay. So this is less basic. So correspondingly, if V2O3 is basic, it reacts with acids and forms. So when you have bases reacting with acids, do they form cations or anions? Like उनके salt में base से जो आ रहा है, is that going to be a cation or an anion? Like for example, NaOH is a base. If it reacts with any acid like HCl, so corresponding salt जो है, would NaOH से would you get the cation or anion? Which ion is going to be contributed by the base? Siddharth, Kingshuk, Jinane, you guys here? You guys can answer on chat also, okay? I have my eye on here.
What did I miss, ma'am?
Oh, you weren't here. Okay. So I was asking, like V2O3 is a basic oxide, right? So when it reacts with acids, what kind of ion would you expect it to form? A cation or anion? Like bases contribute the cation of the salt or anion of the salt? Okay, awesome. So that is already answered. So bases provide the cation. Very good. Ritvik also answered. So simple example, like whenever you're confused here. So NaOH is a base, HCl is an acid. So if NaCl is the salt, the cation of the salt comes from the base. So in this case also, when V2O3 reacts with acids, the salts में जो cation है, yeah, bases give cation. So you're going to have VO2 plus salts. So that involves like if the acid is HCl, then the salt you get is VO2 plus Cl or Cl2, 2 plus NO. So VOCl2, salts like that. Similarly, okay, V2O5 is amphoteric. So when this reacts with acids, so when this reacts with acids, V2O5 acts as a base, which is why you're going to get an oxocation, VO2 plus, nahin? VO4 plus salts. And when V2O5 reacts with alkalis, in this case, V2O5 is acting as an acid because it's reacting with a base. So in this case, you're going to get an oxoanion. So you get VO4 3 minus salts. Okay. So yeah, so these are like the main skeleton equations. So in case you're given any equation of the form, okay, if vanadium pentoxide is reacting with NaOH, sodium hydroxide, then what salt is going to be formed? Can you predict that? So let's say I'm giving you an equation, vanadium pentoxide reacting with NaOH. So acid plus base gives salt plus water. So what will be the formula of the salt formed here? Of course, all of them are aqueous. Chalo, give me the answer, all of you. Put it on the chat. So what is the salt formed when vanadium pentoxide reacts with sodium hydroxide? Okay, Ria has already given an answer. Jasleen, yeah, it's going to give an oxoanion. So now, like I've specified the base also, right? Like give me the complete like salt ka formula. Yes, correct. a very simple question. Like if you have like the skeleton equation ऊपर इधर ही है, so you can easily predict the product here. Ananya has also given the answer. Excellent, awesome, good stuff. Jasleen, yeah, that is the anion. तो यहाँ पे cation क्या होगा? Like किसके साथ bond करेगा? Aryan and Jinein, right answers. Nice, very good. Quickly, come on. Siddharth, Arya, I haven't heard from you also like this whole session, man. Kingshuk, Ritvik, not really. So Ritvik, I've given the skeleton equation here, right? So the base, like the oxide I'm taking is V2O5, and NaOH is acid or alkali? So based on, it is alkali. So you need to consider this equation. So यहाँ से we can see that when V2O5 reacts with alkalis, the salts are, salt में जो anion है, the oxo anion formed is VO4 3 minus ion. Abhi this is going to bond with the cation that you get from the alkali. तो इधर alkali is NaOH, right? तो इसमें cation क्या होगा? Na, right? So what is the compound formed between VO4 3 minus and Na plus? Yeah, nah. See, VO4 है, उसका चार्ज है 3 माइनस, तो कितने Na चाहिए उसको न्यूट्रलाइज करने के लिए? Ritvik, you missed by one number, man. 3 नेगेटिव चार्जेस है, तो कितने पॉजिटिव चार्जेस चाहिए न्यूट्रलाइज करने के लिए? अमला, 3, राइट? यस. तो फाइनल फॉर्मूला क्या होगा? Yes. Amla, you're right. But abhi when you've added the 3 Na, that the 3 negative charges have been neutralized, right? So you don't have to put the 3 minus in the end. So your final formula is going to be Na3VO4. So either 3 minus hai because like that those many extra electrons are there. Now that you are attaching 3 positive charges, they get cancelled out. So this compound is going to be neutral. So this is the answer. Okay, awesome. So Jinein has also balanced the equation. Very nice, man. Good. Yeah. Cool. So this is going to be 2. V2 hai isliye. So this is going to be 6. And based on the number of hydrogen and oxygen, you can adjust the H2O. Okay. Awesome. So these are like the chemical properties. It's very like you're given the principles here ki what you need to look at. Like look at their electronic configuration and their E0 values. So based on that, you can predict if they are going to be oxidizing or reducing, you know, what kind of reactions they would prefer undergoing. So the same thing can be applied to lanthanoids, actinoids as well. So lanthanoids and actinoids also prefer to exist in +3 oxidation state. This is for lanthanoids and actinoids. So if at all you come across a lanthanoid that is in +2, then it will want to get into +3. So it itself is getting oxidized, so it will show a reducing nature. And if you come across like cerium or ytterbium in the +4 oxidation state, then it will want to get back to +3. So that is going to show a reducing nature because it itself, no, +4 to +3 is going to show an oxidizing nature because it itself wants to get reduced. Okay. So the main thing you have to remember is that lanthanoids and actinoids, preferably they want to be in +3 oxidation state. So based on that, you can figure out what kind of reactions they would undergo. Similarly for D block, so copper was like a main exception of wanting to be in +2 oxidation state, and that was that was because of the enthalpy of hydration of Cu2 plus versus Cu plus. Aryan saying F block names are funny. Yeah, they are very funny. Mainly F block is named after scientists and place names. So you have like Europeum and all of those things. Okay. Another main this thing, like we had discussed this last class, so we're gonna talk about lanthanoid contraction. And because of lanthanoid contraction, two main consequences arise. One is that now because the size is decreasing in the F block going from left to right, the covalent nature of the bond with hydroxide or oxide increases. And if the covalent nature increases, the basic nature decreases. So the first lanthanide ka hydroxide, which is the first lanthanide? The first lanthanide is I think, yeah, lanthanum La, is much more basic as compared to the last lanthanide, which is lutetium Lu. Okay. And another consequence because of lanthanide contraction is the whole concept of chemical twins. So chemical twins find out karne ke liye, so it's not diagonal relationship. So diagonal relationship applies only to second and third period ke elements. In the case of like lanthanide contraction, in the same group jo elements hai, if they're like right on top and bottom together, then they are chemical twins. So you've got like molybdenum and tungsten as chemical twins, and other two examples are you've got zirconium and hafnium, Zr and Hf, and niobium and tantalum, so Nb and Ta. Yeah. So these are chemical twins. And finally, okay, are you guys comfortable with the reactions of lanthanides, or do you want to go over them again?
And they're fine, I guess.
Fine, everybody? Okay, I'm not gonna go over the chemical reactions of lanthanides, huh? Okay. Now, talking about magnetic moments, where does magnetic moment like come from? Like why do elements have, like, why does it exist at all? Magnetic moments. Have you guys done magnetism physics mein?
Ma'am, not pure magnetism as such, but electrically induced magnetism we have done.
Okay, electrically induced magnetism you've done now. Okay, that is like the important fact. So you are aware of the fact that electricity produces a magnetic field, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So इसलिए atoms में क्या है, like electrons are electrons stationary in an atom, or are they
No, ma'am.
constantly moving?
They're constantly moving.
They're constantly moving, na? So if electrons are constantly moving, so they are moving electric charges. Moving electric charges matlab there's like tiny small currents.
Yeah,
You
negative,
can think of,
negative, yeah,
yeah,
negative charge.
and that is the reason they can interact with a magnetic field. Now, why are not all the atoms not interacting with that magnetic field? Because like all the atoms have moving electrons. The reason is that, like Riya has mentioned, unpaired electrons se magnetic moment aata hai. The reason is that you're aware of like two behaviors with respect to magnetic fields, right? So there is diamagnetism and there is paramagnetism. Okay. So in like when you have when an electric field is applied, now depending on how the electron is moving, so that comes due to its orbital angular momentum and due to its spin angular momentum. Okay. So because of these two factors, like these are the two factors that decide how it is going to react to a magnetic field. Now, when the electrons are all paired up, so if you have a paired electron, like if you have a random orbital and ek upar hai, like both of them are in the same orbit, which means that orbital angular momentum equal hai dono electrons ka. The only difference between both of these electrons is the spin angular momentum. Now, the spin is opposite in both the cases, represented by plus half and minus half, right? Now, because both of them are equal and opposite to each other, whatever spin angular momentum, say magnetic moment that these two electrons have, they both cancel each other out. Which is why when all the electrons are paired up, we say that they show diamagnetism, and diamagnetism is a much weaker effect as compared to paramagnetism. So isliye we don't consider any of the paired electrons at all, because all of their magnetic moments basically cancel each other out. Now in the case of paramagnetism, so that arises due to orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum. Now because they are not paired up, like all of them, like all of them have the same spin, they all not exactly, but like they kind of add up, like they don't cancel each other out, and the result is a much stronger effect to the magnetic field, which is paramagnetism. There is another effect called ferromagnetism. So ferromagnetism is basically paramagnetism on steroids. So it's like an extremely strong version of paramagnetism. So that is ferromagnetism. Okay. Now, in the case of d block elements, in the case of transition elements, so all of the unpaired electrons you will find only in the d orbital, right? Like s orbital, p orbital, they're all like paired up. There is nothing, there's no magnetic moment associated with them. So all your unpaired electrons are in the d block d orbital. So within d orbital itself, do you guys remember what are the different orbitals you find in the d orbital? Or like what are the different orientation, like spatial orientations you find in the d orbital? Like you've got 5 of them, right? So what are the 5 um, like 5 types of d orbitals? Do you remember? dxy and
DXZ was one. YZ was one.
yeah, yes, and then you've got dx square y square and then dz square, right? These are like the 5 this thing. Now
Ma'am, what are those? What are those squared ones? I don't remember reading about those.
oh, so they're all like, all of them describe how the orbitals are aligned with respect to the coordinate axis. Like if you have dxy, so they basically form a double butterfly in the xy plane itself. And similarly,
Ma'am, so how do you display x square, y square?
yeah, so again this is in the xz plane, and same with the yz. Now x square y square is basically aligned along the axis. So this is what it looks like. So compared to, I'll just display it in a different color. So if you compare it with XY, XZ and all that, so you have XY aligned SA between this thing, and then you've got XZ and of course YZ also aligned like in between the place, like over here, piche. Okay, it goes like behind and ahead of the screen. So d x square y square is along the axis. So they're like, you can imagine them to be at a 45-degree angle compared to the others. And dz square, of course, like has a completely different shape than the other d orbitals. That looks something like this. Okay, so you've got like dumbbells and something like a tire or a ring around the center. Now, these two orbitals are special as compared to these three because, you know, like by rotating 90 degrees, like these three are basically interchangeable. So it like, you only have the difference, you know, based on which axis you take as x, which one you take as y, and which one you take as z. But that is not the case in the case of these two orbitals. Like their alignment, like spatial alignment changes depending on what you take as x, y, or z. Okay. So because of that, like whatever electrons you have in x, y, x, z, y, z, like the orbital angular momentum contribution towards the magnetic moment is something called, like you say, it is quenched. Yeah. So in your textbook, it's like we're not gonna go in detail about it, but basically it is not exactly considered when you calculate the total magnetic moment. So the only magnetic moment effect you're going to consider is the spin angular momentum. And because you're only considering the spin, you just count the number of unpaired electrons and you get the magnetic moment ka formula as, for d block elements, mu equal to root of n into n plus 2, where n is the number of unpaired electrons. But in the case of F block, what is happening is, let me take a different color. So in the case of F block, both the orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum are considered, which is why the formula gets modified as mu equal to L into L plus 1 or L plus 2. Yeah, L plus 1 into S into S plus 1 into 4. So the reason why it is modified is because you're taking into consideration both the orbital angular moment and the spin angular moment. So in this case, L is basically the orbital quantum number and S is the spin quantum number. Okay. So this is like the short note or details on the magnetic moments of d and f block elements. Clear? So for d block,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, you just have to consider the number of unpaired electrons, and in the case of F block, you will consider the orbital angular momentum and the spin angular momentum because both of them contribute. But in the case of D block, the magnetic moment is only due to spin angular moment. That is the basic difference. Okay. All right. So should we start doing the questions then?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Last time we had done 8.1.1 से लेके 10 तक, right?
Ma'am, 13 and 16 were for homework.
Huh. So look at question number 11. E naught values for M3 plus M2 plus couple is positive, whereas for chromium it is negative. Why? Wait, I'll call out and you answer, okay? We'll go from the end this time. Jasmine. Jasmine, are you there? Okay, I think Jasmine's mic is not working. You can type out your answer. Yeah. In the meantime, rest of you also can type out your answer on chat, like as long as you send privately. So Mn3 plus 2 plus couple is positive, but chromium 3 plus chromium 2 plus is negative. Why? Kingshuk saying can't see. Do I need to zoom in, or is it like not visible at all? I am sharing the screen. Kingshuk, can you like unmute yourself and okay, what about now? Should be visible. Yes, Kingshuk, visible. Okay, yeah, reload. Is there anybody else also who is not able to see the PDF, or is it visible to all?
Visible, ma'am. Properly visible.
Okay, ठीक है. All right. Jasmine, Ria, Ritvik, and Aryan have answered. Let's see. Yeah, Ria, going in the right track. Correct. Jasmine. Again, Jasmine, I had mentioned this earlier. So if it is written as Mn3 plus slash 2 plus, that basically stands for Mn2 plus getting converted to 3 plus, like getting 3 plus out of 2 plus. And E naught value, again, like negative E naught value means, oh yeah, that process is happening. And positive E naught value is, you know, it is difficult to do that process. You like whatever you mentioned, you could have worded it slightly different. Ritvik, yes, absolutely correct. Ananya, yes, correct answer. Aryan also has given the correct answer. Nice. Siddharth also is correct. Awesome. Jasmine, yes, you realized. Cool. So the answer is related to the electronic configuration. So Mn2 plus is already in its 3d5 state. So converting it into Mn3 plus is taking electron, like removing an electron from the half-filled orbital, which is difficult, which is like, that's why it's gonna end in a positive E naught value. But in the case of Cr2 plus to 3 plus, Cr is yeah, so Cr2 plus is in a 3d4 state that is getting converted to Cr3 plus with a configuration of 3d3. So in that case, again, it fills out the degenerate orbitals of the 3d orbital. So that's d, x, y, y, z, z, x. And that creates, you know, like that contributes to the stability, which is why it is negative. So it's all related to the electronic configuration. Cool. 12th, MnO is basic, whereas Mn2O7 is acidic. Why? Siddharth, your turn. Look at 8.1.12. MnO is basic, whereas Mn2O7 is acidic. Why? I'll give you a hint. It relates to the oxidation states. Yes, Jasleen has answered. Okay. Arey, so that got disconnected. Okay, Rutvik, can you answer?
Ma'am, the oxidation state of Mn is +2 and in Mn2 is +6. So it would so if it's a lower oxidation state, it would be more basic.
So all of you have given that answer. It is absolutely right. Higher oxidation state means it's more acidic in nature. If you had to be a little more explanatory, then you can just mention that higher oxidation state means more covalent nature. That also, that basically contributes to the acidic nature. Yeah, awesome. Very good. 14th is the reaction of MnO4 with alkali, the presence of oxygen. So I didn't discuss the compounds KMnO4 and K2Cr2O7 with you guys. Had you done that in school, or was it excluded from the portion? Okay, it was done in school. Okay. Yeah, it's a deleted portion, I know. That's why I was just checking if you guys were taught or not. Yeah. So will you be able to answer this question? Let's see how much you remember. So if you're not able to also, it's okay. Like you can go over it, like once we're done with the portion at the end, or, just before the competitive exams, or like whenever. Okay. If you don't remember it, it's okay. You can revise it again once we're done with the whole chapter. All right. So let's look at 8.1.15. Cu plus is unstable in aqueous solution. Why? Ria, your turn. So as I'm discussing the questions, I hope all of you are like noting it down, writing in your notebook. Aryan saying will it be K2MnO4? I think it would be K2. I think it'll be KMnO4, potassium permanganate plus potassium disproportionation. Yeah, this does result in a disproportionation reaction. Yes. But Arya, are you talking about 14th or 15th question? 15. Oh no, 15th. Yeah, that's not related to disproportionation. So we're talking about the stability, right? So because of stability, it will undergo disproportionation reaction. But why is it unstable? Ria has already given the answer. Very good. Jasmine has also given the answer. Good. Yes. Jasmine also has answered. So the answer for this, yeah, because it is unstable, it forms Cu2 plus and Cu, like it will undergo disproportionation. But the reason of its instability is in the hydration enthalpy. So Cu2 plus has a higher hydration enthalpy as compared to Cu plus. That is why it is unstable in aqueous solution. Okay. So the reason is because of its hydration enthalpy. Again, you also need to remember if it has like a low hydration enthalpy or high hydration enthalpy, like a higher negative hydration enthalpy. Yes. Okay. 16, 17, again, 17 and 18 are related to the oxidizing or the reducing nature of like permanganate and dichromate ions related to that. Look at 19. Arrange the following hydroxide in the increasing order of covalent character of MOH bond. इसके लिए you will need the order of the lanthanides. So all of these are lanthanides. So you've got cerium, promethium. I don't remember what TM is. Lu is lutetium. So increasing order matlab like which one has the lowest covalent character to whichever has the highest covalent. So Ria was done. Jinin, your turn. So if you want,
Ma'am,
can...
I'm unsure as to how to approach this question. Could you please give me another one? Can I do something else?
ठीक है. Anybody who can answer this, you can raise your hand. Nobody? Okay, I'll put the periodic table in front of you. Then would you be able to answer? No? अभी थोड़ी देर पहले discuss किया ना? So because the size is decreasing as you go from left to right, how does that affect the nature of the OH bond? F block elements में how is the OH bond का nature affected because of the size? No? Not sure? Okay, I'll just repeat that again. So yeah, it's like one of the consequences of lanthanoid contraction. So as the size decreases, the covalent nature increases. And if the covalent nature increases, what can you say about the basic nature? Basic nature decreases. Yes. तो अभी question में क्या पूछा है? What is this asked? Oh, covalent nature he they've asked. Okay. So I'm going to display the periodic table on the screen. Have you guys noted down कौन से elements पूछा है इधर? So you've got cerium, so you've got promethium, so Ce, PM, TM, and Lu. Okay, so quickly note it down and then tell me what the answer is. So all of them are lanthanides. So you've got Ce over here, PM is over here, TM is over here, and Lu is over here. So that particular, oh, it's in the same order itself. So which one will have maximum covalent nature and which one will have minimum covalent nature? Ananya has already given her answer. Very nice. Correct. So covalent nature increases, which is why basic nature decreases. See, it's getting like a bigger ion versus a smaller ion. So, so which ion can like... So Ritvik, you have given the order for basic nature, but the question was asking for covalent nature. So covalent nature increases from left to right. So Ce, yeah, so Lu has maximum covalent nature, then Tm. So if you have to put it in increasing order, then it's going to be Ce, then Pm, then Tm, then Lu. Yeah, LuOH thrice is the most covalent, correct. Okay. All right, so getting back to this, share. Huh. So 20th. Niobium belongs to 4D transition series and tantalum belongs to 5D transition series. But both show similar physical and chemical properties because answer this in 2 words. Jasmine, no, they are called chemical twins. But idhar reason pooch rahe. They show they are chemical twins because Aryan diagonal relationship to upar like second, third periods mein ho gaya. So when you're considering 4D, 5D, Ria has given the correct answer, man. Correct. Very good. So Ananya and Jasleen have said chemical twins. Now they are called chemical twins. You know, their pair, that pair is called a chemical twin. But why are they twins? Like, what is the reason behind their twinness, behind their similarity? Yes, Ananya has also given the correct answer. Very good. I'll give you a hint. The reason they're similar is because they have similar sizes. They don't differ so much in their size. Now, what is the reason for that similarity in size? Like, why is the size not increasing? Yes, now Aryan's also got it. जिनेन ऋत्विक 4D और 5D में उतना साइज में डिफरेंस नहीं है. Why is that? Siddharth, I haven't gotten answers from you also in a while. Yeah, Jasmine, correct. Jasleen is also correct. So that similarity in size is because of lanthanide contraction. So 5D series के पहले जिन्हें ये 2 words is lanthanide contraction. ठीक है. Cool. So in short, lanthanide contraction, but if it comes for like 2 marks, or if if it's not like a fill in the blank, if they ask you to explain, or if it's a more descriptive thing, then you can like describe what lanthanide contraction is and how it results in similar physical and chemical properties. That's it. Yeah. Next. Actinoids do not react with what do actinoids not react with? Whose what do you call, whose turn is it? Janine. Jasleen. Jasleen, if your mic is working, you can answer here. So what do actinides not react? Like, what's the reactivity of actinides? Okay. So actinides in general are pretty reactive, and yeah, they do combine with like oxygen halogens. But what do they not react with? Okay, anyone? Not sure. Okay. Anyone who can answer? किसी को भी पता नहीं है क्या? Okay. The reason, like, actinoids are not react with alkalis, you guys. Like lanthanides and actinoids are already basic in nature, right? They're not going to show acidic or amphoteric properties. So they have no reaction with alkalis or bases. Okay. So bases are one thing, and also, okay, this is one of the chemical properties, like the way you can remember with respect to lanthanoids, actinoids. So when you start out, like on the left side, when it comes to cerium, lanthanum, so they show a lot of chemical properties similar to calcium or alkaline earth metals. So the reaction that they undergo, so they do react with oxygen to form oxides. They react with water to form hydroxides. It's very similar to calcium. They also form carbides when heated with carbon at a high temperature, and they also form like nitrides and sulfides. And as you go from left to right, the rightmost, like when it comes to lutetium, it shows a lot of similarity with aluminium. So like even like these elements also have like a coating of oxygen over them to prevent like further corrosion, just like aluminium. So now because they're already oxidized, even the reaction with nitric acid, say like an oxidizing agent, is going to be very, very less. And because all of them are pretty basic, like aluminium is amphoteric, but calcium is very basic, right? Especially like lanthanides on the left side, they don't really show a lot of reaction, like they don't react with bases. But as you go from left to right, like as the basic nature decreases, to some extent the rightmost elements show. But when it comes to actinides, they absolutely do not react with any of the alkalis. Okay. Then again, why do actinides? Again, you can figure out with the electronic configuration. Then comparison, and this thing. We look at level 2. First question. So highest fluoride of Mn is MnF4, whereas highest oxide is Mn2O2 nahi, O7 hona chahiye. Like why? Give the reason why manganese shows basically a higher oxidation state with oxygen as compared with fluorine. Iska reason kya hai? जिनिन हो गया, जस्मीन हो गया. Arya, can you answer this? Yes, Jasleen has already given her answer in chat. Correct. Jasmine has also given it. Ria has also given it. Awesome. Good stuff. So you can add one more line saying because of that reason, oxygen stabilizes the higher oxidation state as compared to fluorine. Isliye you will find highest fluoride as Mn4 only, but highest oxide is Mn2O7. So Jasmine, Jasleen, and Ria have already answered you guys. What about the rest of you? Ritvik, Siddharth, Jinain, Ananya. Ananya has also given. Ananya, yes. What is the reason for that? Now we're talking about level 2 questions, right? Like ensure that, you have like a slightly more explanatory, a slightly more descriptive this thing. Answer. Okay. So the answer is that Ananya has correctly said that oxygen has a greater stability or ability to stabilize higher oxidation state. Correct. Aryan has also given. Aryan has given the reason for that also. Awesome. Very good. So that's like the complete answer that you will need to give for this kind of question. So oxygen can stabilize a higher oxidation state of manganese better than fluorine. But what is the reason for that? Yes, Jinain, absolutely correct. Very good, detailed answer. Ritvik, Siddharth, Arya. I have not received answers from you guys. Okay, so the answer is that abhi aaj discuss kiya na. So oxygen is able to form multiple bonds. So that results, that basically that results in it being able to stabilize the higher oxidation state of the cation or manganese better. Okay. Oh, okay. Ritvik, internet connection. Cool. But go over all of these questions, huh? Next, catalytic properties. ये सब तो कर लिया हमने. This is again compounds and all. Okay. Calculate the spin magnetic moment of M2 plus aqueous ions, and that particular species ka atomic number is 27. So can you guys quickly calculate this? Like finish off this question and then we'll end the session. Okay. So यहाँ पे you're given the atomic number and also the species is existing as M2 plus ions. So in that case, you'll also have to take into account removing the 2 electrons, and with the remaining electrons, figure out what the electronic configuration is, and from that, calculate the spin magnetic moment. Jinain has already given an answer. Okay, I will check it. So atomic number 27 matlab, what is the electronic configuration going to be? So you've got Ar 4s2 and 3d5. Okay, Ananya and Ria have calculated final this thing. Aryan has also calculated. Okay, सबका एक ही साथ आ रहा है. Siddharth also okay. Cool. So M2 plus मतलब 4s2 नहीं रहेगा. So there's like 5d electrons. All of them are unpaired. So moment is going to be root over 5 into 5 plus. कितना होगा? 5 plus 2. That is equal to root over 5 into. तुम लोगों को root 15 कैसे आया? Oh, my bad. So this is going to be 3d3. 27 है ना? 3 unpaired होगा. Calcium 20 is 4s2 and then it's going to be 3d7, which means that 7 में से 5 plus, okay, 2 of them are already paired, so it's going to be 3 unpaired electrons. My bad. So this is going to be 3 plus 2. So that'll be 5 into 3, that is equal to root 15. So root 15 is a little, like root 16 is 4, so it's a little less than 4 is basically 3.8. Yeah. Awesome. So did you guys use the calculator? Square root calculate करने के लिए?
Can I leave it at root 15 or will I have to provide an estimate? Because I left my answer at root 15 only.
That's fine. If you have the time, it's better just, what do you call it? Sorry. Yeah, you have the time, you can do the calculation. But if you're running short of time, just leave it here. No problem.
Ma'am, now now all of our exams are online anyway. So I mean, like, getting the roots shouldn't be that much of a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's online, it shouldn't be a problem. But again, like if your options are given in terms of decimals, like if you're given something like 3.6, 3.3, 3.8.
Yes, ma'am. In that case, it's very, very easy to guess. That won't be a problem.
Yeah. just take care of that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, awesome. तो आ गया, ठीक है. तो इसका भी क्वेश्चंस, रिमेनिंग क्वेश्चंस, सॉल्व द क्वेश्चंस. अगर कुछ डाउट है तो लेट मी नो. यू कैन पिंग ऑन द ग्रुप और यू कैन पिंग मी, and yeah, practice. So next class I'll be starting solutions. Okay. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. So if there's no doubts or anything, we'll end the session here.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.